All right, my secondary math 2 class, we are going to be starting a new unit, okay, and actually a new type of math, okay? We're going to be talking about geometry and trigonometry, okay? So we're going to be talking a lot about triangles today, okay? And specifically, we'll be working with the Pythagorean Theorem, which we worked with a little bit last year, I believe. So this won't be completely new to you, okay? But before we do that, let's go ahead and remind ourselves that every single triangle, no matter what it looks like, I'm just going to draw a very standard triangle right here. All three of the angles, okay, all angles add to equal 180 degrees. Okay, so all three of its angles, okay, triangles have three angles, 1, 2, 3. Okay, all of these angles added together have to equal 180 degrees. They always will equal 180 degrees. Okay, so knowing that, whenever it gives us two angles of a triangle, that means we can find the third missing angle, okay? So let's go ahead and do that for number 1. So here are the two angles that it tells us, that it gives us, 35 and 70, okay? So in order to find our third angle, we're going to take the total number of degrees, which is 180, and we're going to subtract the 2 degrees that it gives us. Doesn't matter which one you do first. 70 minus 35. And we're going to see what that equals. Okay, so we can just put this right into a calculator. So I got 180 minus 70 minus 35. And that's going to give me 75. Okay, 75 degrees is that third angle right there. So we know that that guy right there has to be 75 degrees. Okay, well, just to be sure, let's go ahead and check our work. So now all three of these angles should add to equal 180. Okay, so let's take the three angles. So I got 35 plus 70 plus 75. And let's just double check our work. 35 plus 70 plus 75. And that does equal 180. So we're good. Check. Okay, well, let's look at number 2. So which two angles does it actually give us? So it gives us 42. There's our missing angle. But then how many degrees is this little box symbol always equal? That always equals 90 degrees. Okay, so the two angles that it gives us are 42 and 90. So we're going to take our total number of degrees, 180 minus 42 minus 90. Okay, and we can just put this right into a calculator. 180 minus 42 minus 90 equals 48. Okay, beautiful. So we know that that third angle, that missing angle right here, is 48 degrees. Okay, well, let's go ahead and just double check our work just to be sure. So all three of these angles should add up to be 180. So 42 plus 90 plus 48. Let's see what they add up to. 42 plus 90 plus 48. And that does equal 180 degrees. So we're good. Okay, so that's for number 1 and 2. It just asked us to find the measure of each angle indicated, so with the question marks. Okay, but let's look at 3 and 4. So notice that instead of a question mark, it's put an equation. Okay, well, what I want us to do is let's just pretend that that equation isn't even there yet, and let's just replace that with a question mark for now. Okay, so on number 3, let's do the exact same thing we were doing before to find that third angle. So it gives us two angles. So let's subtract these two angles from 180 to get our third angle. So I have 180 minus 50 minus 75. Excuse me. And what is that going to give me? Okay, so let's put that in our calculator. I got 180 minus 50 minus 75. So I know that my third angle has to equal 55 degrees. Okay, so 55 degrees is that third angle right there, but that's not our answer, okay? So notice our directions. Our directions tell us that we actually have to solve for x, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this equation that it gives us, x plus 58, and set it equal to what we found, 55. Okay, well now we can go ahead and solve for x. Okay, so we're looking at this side of our equal sign. What's the only thing I gotta do to get x by itself? What is the opposite of plus 58? We're going to subtract 58. Whoops, subtract 58. Okay, so what is 55 minus 58? You can put this in your calculator if you want. We get x is equal to negative 3. And we solved for x. Okay, so let's do the same thing on number 4. Okay, so we have two angles that it gives us, 71 and 64. We're going to replace the angle with the x with just a question mark for now, just to find out what that angle is supposed to be. Okay, so we're going to take our total number of degrees, which is 180, subtract 71 and 64 to find out what that third angle should be. Okay, so I have 180 minus 71 minus 64, and I know that that third angle should be 45. Okay, so that 45 is going to go right there, but remember, that's not what we're looking for. Okay, so we need to take the equation that it gives us, 3 plus 6x, and set it equal to what we found, 45. Whoops. Okay, so now we can go ahead and solve for x. Okay, so looking at the same side, looking at this side of our equal sign, what do I need to get rid of to get x by itself? Okay, I got to get rid of this positive 3 first. So what's the opposite of positive 3? We're going to subtract 3. Okay, so I get 6x is left over here, equals 45 minus 3 is 42. Okay, and our x is almost by itself. I just got to get rid of this times by 6. How do I get rid of times by 6, or what is the opposite of it? We're going to divide by 6. Okay, so my x is all by itself. What is 42 divided by 6? Put this in your calculator if you want. 42 divided by 6, we get 7. So we found what x is. Okay, so that's where we were trying to find a missing angle of a triangle, because we know that all angles have to equal 180 degrees. Okay, well, let's look at numbers 5 through 8. Now it's not asking us to find missing angles, it's asking us to find missing sides. Okay, so in order to find missing sides of right triangles, where there's a right angle in them, we have to use what's called the Pythagorean Theorem, okay, which you guys should remember a little bit from last year. Okay, so let's just remind ourselves. What is the Pythagorean Theorem? Okay, so the Pythagorean Theorem is always a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, and now in order to use the Pythagorean Theorem, we actually have to know what is a, b, and c. Okay, so let's go ahead and just draw a little right triangle right here. Okay, so right triangle has a right angle in it. Okay, so in a right triangle, the two sides that make up this right angle, those are called the legs. So that side is a leg, and that side is a leg. Okay, the side that is across from this right angle is called the hypotenuse. Okay, so in a right triangle, our A's and B's can be either one of the legs. It doesn't really matter. So we can just label one of the legs as A, and one of the legs is B. The thing that always matters is that your C is always the hypotenuse. Your C has to be the hypotenuse. Okay, so knowing this, let's go ahead and label, let's go up to number 5. Okay, so let's label what is my C side. So let's find the C side first. So right across from my right angle is always going to be my C. Okay, A and B can be either one. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and make X my A and make 3 my B. Okay, so now that I know what my A, B, and C are, I can plug what I need to into the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so A squared, my A is X, so X squared, plus B squared, my B is 3, so 3 squared, equals C squared, my C is 5, so 5 squared. Okay, so now I can start solving for X, or what my missing side is. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is actually figure out what is 3 squared and 5 squared. Okay, so what is 3 squared? What's 3 times 3? That 3 squared is going to turn into a 9. Okay, we can't change X squared into something because we don't know what X is. So it has to say X squared plus 9 equals what is 5 squared? 5 times 5? 25. Okay, so now we can start solving for X. Okay, well, looking at this side of my equal sign, what do I need to get rid of first? I need to get rid of this plus 9. So what is the opposite of plus 9? Subtract 9. Okay, so then I get X squared is left over here, equals 25 minus 9 is 16. Okay, and you might say, okay, X is by itself, we're good, my answer is 16. Okay, but X is not by itself, it has this squared by it. So how do we get rid of, or what is the opposite of squaring something? We have to square root it. Okay, do the same thing to both sides. So now we get X by itself. Well, what is the square root of 16? Okay, remember you have this button on your calculator, you're gonna wanna click second, and then above the X squared is the little square root sign, so click that. 16, and we get 4. So we know that my missing side right here was 4. Awesome. Okay, so let's do that again on number 6. So first thing we want to do is identify A, B, and C. Well, let's identify C first, because that's the most important one. So across from my hypotenuse is always my C. Okay, A can be either. This time I'll make 8 my A and X my B. Okay, so now we can start filling in the Pythagorean theorem. So A squared, my A is 8, so 8 squared, plus B squared, my B is X, so X squared, equals C squared, my C is 10, so 10 squared. Okay, well now we need to solve for X. So looking at this side, well actually first let's figure out what is 8 squared and 10 squared. Let's simplify those. Okay, what is 8 squared, or 8 times 8? 64 plus X squared, because we can't simplify that, equals 10 squared. What is 10 times 10? 100. Okay, so now looking at this side, what do I need to get rid of first? I need to get rid of this plus 64. So what is the opposite of plus 64? Subtract 64. Okay, so I get X squared equals, what is 100 minus 64? I get 36. Okay, we're not quite done because my X isn't by itself. So how do I get rid of square? What is the opposite of square? Remember, we have to square root it. They cancel each other out. We get X all by itself. And what is the square root of 36? If you want to put this in your calculator, second, little square root symbol, 36, and I get 6. So I know that my missing side over here is 6. Beautiful. Okay, now let's look at these guys. Okay, let's do the same exact thing. I'm telling you right now, these are not going to be as pretty, because notice our last instructions. Leave your answers in simplest radical form. Okay, radical looks like this guy, square root. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a second. First thing, let's just identify our A, B, and our C. Okay, so C has to be across from our hypotenuse. Okay, I'll make x my A and 4 my B. Okay, A squared, so x squared plus B squared equals C squared. Awesome. So now let's simplify. Can we simplify x squared? No, we can't. But what is 4 squared, or 4 times 4? 16. And what is 13 squared? You can put this in your calculator if you need to. 13 squared gives me 169. Beautiful. Okay. Now, looking at this side, I need to get rid of this plus 16 first. What is the opposite of plus 16? We are going to subtract 16 from both sides. Okay, so I get x squared equals 169 minus 16 is 153. Okay, my very last step. What is the opposite of squaring something? Square root it. Okay, but let's try and put the square root of 153. Second square root 153 equals, oh, that's ugly. Okay, because we get this big ugly decimal, we are just going to leave our answer as x equals the square root of 153. Okay, they're both ugly, but this one's maybe just a little less ugly. Okay, so we left it in radical form. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go over to number 8. So let's identify A, B, and C. Okay, so again, C has to be across from the right angle. Okay, so 14 is my C. I'll make 4 my A and x my B. So A squared, 4 squared, plus B squared, B is x, so x squared equals C squared, C is 14, so 14 squared. Okay, so now let's simplify these guys where we can. 4 squared, or 4 times 4 is 16, plus x squared equals 14 squared, which I'm going to need to put in a calculator. 14 squared, 196. Beautiful. Okay, now we're trying to get x by itself, so what do I need to get rid of first? I need to get rid of this plus 16, so what is the opposite of plus 16? We're going to subtract 16. So I get x squared is equal to 196 minus 16 is 180. Okay, so now to get x all by itself, what is the opposite of squaring something? We square root it, cancels out. Okay, but let's try and put the square root. Okay, so second square root symbol, 180 equals, big ugly decimal. Okay, so instead of that big ugly decimal, we're just going to write x equals the square root of 180. Okay, beautiful. And those are the missing sides. Okay, those are your notes for today. There is an assignment that goes with it.